Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. It's your boy Kelvin Love Jr. coming at you one more again. It's kind of an English like slang way to say one more time, one more again. All right, man. So I did go ahead and grab another one of the Alireza Firouzja games. I think probably one of the the most interesting games in the tournament so far from the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz. It's Alireza Firouzja versus Fabiano Caruana. So classic matchup. Like I said, it's a really nice game. For all of my people that are coming from the Philippines, as always, never gonna forget you guys out there, man. My support base. I will say mabuhay to you. Magandang umaga. It is super duper morning time, so I appreciate you guys very much for coming by. Anybody who is coming from France, I will say bonjour to you. Comment ça va? Comment allez-vous? Let me see. Meilleure voix. Merci beaucoup, mes amis, for coming by and taking a look. Anybody who is coming up from Iran or who does speak Farsi, I will say salam to you. Man Kelvin Kelvin Love Jr. Kheli Mamnoon for coming by and taking a look at my stuff. But yeah, if you guys are ready to go, yep, let's take a look see what we got for this game, man. So we got the move e4, we got e5, we got knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to b5. So we start off with the Roy Lopez, and then we do have knight to f6, so we are in the Berlin defense. And as you guys know, there are many different ways you can go about playing this particular position. What Firouzja decides to go is d3, which is, very logical. You're just saying, hey, man, I don't want to have any of the stuff going on with the e-pawn, so I'm going to go ahead and just go d3. As you guys, I'm sure, know, if you do decide that you castle in this position, you are not going to be dropping your e-pawn, because one of the many variations is knight takes e4, rook goes over to e1, and now, you kind of have a problem with that king in the center. The knight would probably come back to d6 and then knight taking e5 and not dropping the entire game with knight takes b5, because knight's going to take c6 and your queen is gone. You would be looking at bishop to e7 and then bishop back to f1. That's just one of the many possibilities. But as you guys know, this is, pretty strong for both sides. You're good to go. But like I said, we do see d5. We got to move bishop to c5, so more of kind of like a, an Italian game, Juco Piano type situation. We do have the move c3, which is doubly purposed. You don't want any pesky knight moves, but then also at some point later, you might be trying to get the move d4 in. So c3 just kind of helps you do that. So, we do have the move castles by black, castles by white. We got the move d6. Bishop comes to g5, and then we have the move h6. And you kind of have a decision to make. You can retreat the bishop back, or you can just say, hey, man, I'm going to go ahead and just try to keep the pin going with bishop to h4, which is what we see in the game. The best possible way to go about playing this as black is to go g5. Even though it kind of seems like it does damage your king side just a little bit, you definitely have ways you can defend that as black. So the bishop does go to g3, and then just continuing to harass the bishop, we got knight to h5. Knight b comes to d2. We're not worried about the knight taking here. We're just going to take it with the h-pawn, and we're going to be pretty much a-okay. This is not actually the best bishop for white anyway, simply because, like, all these pawns are on dark squares. So, I mean, you don't really have a whole lot going on with that bishop. So, it's not the end of the world to give it up. We do see a queen coming to f6. And this just develops, but then also something that you have to think about is because you have done this h6, g5 with your pawns, it is very similar to having a Fian Kettle position, similar to like a Pierce or a modern or like a Sicilian dragon type situation. So you kind of have a lot of dark square weaknesses around your king. So the queen is developing, but then it's also kind of coming to serve kind of trade jobs with this bishop, because as you guys can see, this bishop is like way off sides. So the queen is kind of, keeping an eye on these squares over here. So we do see the move d4, and I know you guys see the bar. The thing about d4 in this particular position is that the square d4 is actually very under defended. So it is not the correct time to push d4. I'm going to go into the variation and kind of show you guys a little bit further, and then I'm going to come back and show what was very, very suggested to be played. You do see the move knight takes g3, pawn takes g3. And I mean, Fabi is like, bro, I'm taking full advantage of this situation. So he just removes the bishop completely, gets his knight off the rim, and then pawn takes d4. And then we kind of have to go into a very sharp line, but black ends up coming out really nicely here. We do see bishop taking c6, and then the novelty of the game, which is pawn takes c3. Now, this is d4 is theory, so but it was just played a little bit different. After the bishop took here, you did see a varying of the position at this moment. And so, like I said, you do see pawn taking c3, which is the novelty. And then we do have a last-ditch move. We're just like, hey, man, we're going to grab another pawn and just keep it going because we are attacking this rook on a8. And then you do see bishop taking b7, pawn taking c3, and then queen taking c3. And, you know, black is actually just kind of up in, you know, a few different ways. First of all, they're up a pawn. Second of all, they have double bishops against double knights in a very open position. And then also, they do have, yeah, that's the bishop, yeah. And then their structure is better, like, you know, so they have like, you know, even though they're kind of broken up a little bit over here, they do have a little bit of a better structure. Because you do kind of have a weak pawn in the center and you have these double pawns right here. So, you know, everything is kind of stacking in black's favor. But if we do go back, after we saw the move queen to f6, what you actually want to do in the position, which actually is slightly better for white, is just remove this knight completely at the very beginning of everything you want to try to do. And then black is kind of stuck here. They really kind of have to take back. You can always toss in the intermezzo move, you know, the Zweichenszug move, knight takes g3, because white is going to have to deal with that because the rook is attacked. But it's probably one of the best to go pawn takes c6. And then after this, you do have the move d4. But see, the thing about this particular variation is it takes a lot of calculation to actually go into this, because you have to see that you hit d4. After the knight takes, pawn takes d4, you have to be calculating to throw in the move e5. And then after pawn takes e5, which might look kind of strange, but what you're trying to do is you're trying to open up the e4 square for your knight. After the knight comes to e4, you know, you do have that multi-attack going on, and you are going to be able to actually take this pawn back. And I mean, the situation is just much better. So that is the variation that you had to go into. But like I said, we did not see that. We did get all the way to this point here where the queen is good. And I mean, you're trying to put the rook on b1. But the absolute problem is, I mean, black can literally just plug everything up, which is what they do. Bishop goes to b6. And I mean, this rook is just completely ineffective on either this open file, this half open file, or even this half open file, because everything is just completely protected. And, you know, you don't have the ability to go knight to c4 at the moment. So, I mean, you just have black is just literally capable of just, you know, just holding everything down. They are going to be swinging a rook over here and attacking this pawn. Like I said, this is a actually very weak pawn at the moment. We do see the move a4. We got rook a to b8, and black is just making their own claim on that file. You do see the rook up to b5, but unfortunately this drops the exchange. I think you guys might be able to see it. It is bishop coming to a6, which is what we see in the game. And unfortunately, you have moved your rook on the same diagonal as your other rook. So now you're going to be losing one of your rooks. And I think everybody can feel this pain, because I think everybody has moved into this same type of a situation with their rooks. And we're just like, I can't believe I did that, bro. No, it sucks, right? Yeah. So the rook does slide over to f5, trying to be active, trying to be like, hey, you know, take advantage of at least a little bit of the weakness, you know, around the king and stuff like that. But you do lose your rook. Knight, bishop takes f1, knight takes f1, and then we do see the move rook f8. Like I said, I mean, you have a lot of pressure on this pawn. You know, you can always double up on it if you want to. The queen can always try to, like, you know, slide over and add some pressure and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's a really nice position. So, we have reached the point in the game that if you do want to pause the video and see what move Alireza Firouzja plays in this position, go ahead and do so. Okay, cool. So, it's like not the best move by far. It is a very like risky, like kind of way to play. And there is a major flaw behind the move. But I just thought, you know, this was like a really explosive move. So it kind of seems like it's like throwing some fire down on the board, right? The move is knight takes g5. And, you know, they're really, when you get in this position, I mean, I think Firouzja is kind of in a situation where it's like, man, it doesn't matter what I do, bro. I might as well just do something crazy. Because there really are no good moves in this position. I mean, black is completely in command of this position. They are attacking your weaknesses and stuff like that. Especially if they could trade queens off. I mean, you're just down the exchange. And you got a bishop versus, you know, a knight versus a rook. So, you know, the king is going to start getting in there. So, like I said, I feel like he was just like, dude, I'm just going to do something super crazy. But like I said, there is a major flaw behind, you know, what he is trying to do. And there's a very good defense for black. So knight does take g5. Pawn takes g5. And then you do have queen going to h5. So, you know, he's like, man, I'm just going to do some crazy. And then, so, you know, Fabiano's sitting there. He's like, bro, you know what? You sacking, I'm sacking. So he goes bishop takes f2 with check. And, I mean, you're kind of stuck in this position. I mean, it is absolutely best to take back with this rook right here. But you would be looking at queen coming back to g7. And this is the flaw with what Firouzja just got done doing. Because, like I said, the queen for black is really kind of taking over the role of what the bishop would be doing on this exact square. Because you see that this king on these dark squares is completely wide open. So this queen has been maintaining this diagonal, like for the very reason to make sure that there is no type of attack on the king side that succeeds. And so in this particular situation, if you did take back with the rook on f2, you would be seeing queen going back to g7. But after we saw bishop takes f2, Firouzja said, I don't want none of that. So he goes ahead and goes up king to h2. And then we see queen to g7 anyway. You know, we're not trying to hang this pawn. This is the perfect location for the queen because you're not going to get messed up here. You're not going to get messed up if you play f6. You know, and so, like I said, this is just the perfect defensive move. And because black has this, there isn't really an attack that white can place that they're going to be okay. So this is the point where the rook does take f2. And then the rook does take e4. So, I mean, you don't really want to be trading down in this scenario. So, Firouzja says, bro, I'm going to win your queen. I'm going to win you. But Fabi says, hey, man, relax, bro. Like, you're not going to win my queen, man. Like, everything is everything, man. And so he plays the move knight to e3, which is kind of like, you know, trying to deflect this rook away so you can actually win the queen. If you can do that, then you actually have a pretty nice game going on if you can get the queen. But, you know, Fabi says, bro, I'm not letting you win my queen. And I'm just going to go ahead and just put an X-slam on the whole game right now. And I'm going to go queen to h8. Pinning and winning. That is what he is doing. So you have seen this recurring theme in another game that I did, where basically white had a crazy attack and black said, nah, bro, I'm just going to pin your queen to your king. This is a very effective defense, especially when your opponent is down material and they absolutely do not want to trade. This is a situation where this queen and this queen are going to be traded some kind of way. And you literally just have a rook and a knight versus two rooks. You know, black just has two entire extra pawns. Not only that, but your pawns are really horrible on a G-file. So it is in this position that Alireza Firouzja does resign the game. And this picture that I use for the thumbnail and that's down here, that is actually the end of this game. So I was able to find the video. I was able to find the picture from the actual game they played. So yeah, that is that was a pretty crazy game, I think. You know, that was it was pretty straightforward, and it's just like that little small inaccuracy as far as the middle game is concerned and that d4 pawn pushed. It just kind of just like, you know, it doesn't take much for these players to grab onto something you did and just basically just make the game go completely downhill. So yeah, that was a really nicely played game. So I appreciate everybody very much for stopping by. Maraming salamat aking magkaibigan. Merci beaucoup. Hailey Mamnoon, and I'll see you guys next time.